Thank you for tuning in to the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. There are new calls for segregation, both in living arrangements and in schools. Thank you for watching. On both sides of the aisle, black versus white, there are calls for new segregation. If you are unaware, because Democrats rewrote history, segregation was practiced in the United States like apartheid was in South Africa, 100% all over the United States. Black people were segregated both in the South, the North, and the West. This was forced upon black people. Black people could not purchase property anywhere other than the black community. However, we've now come full circle because of research and studies that have been done, and that we are losing our black boys. New resurgence and new calls for segregation have popped up. Rich black people have already taken to segregating themselves into rich black areas. This is, of course, no difference than rich white people, of course. And of course, nobody says anything about that. They just say, oh, they're rich. But when black people do it, they say, oh, that's racist. It's all ridiculous anyway. Anyway, you couldn't afford to live with the rich black people, just like you can't afford to live with the rich white people. But now, they're calling for a segregation of the schools. It has been found that black boys have been targeted and drummed out of school. And for those people who say, oh, black people are stupid, they're not applying themselves, they're poor and ignorant, and they have crack whore mamas, that is not the case. From zero to middle class, black boys are being drummed out of school. Now, I have shown you that boys in general are being drummed out of school. They do not tolerate boys. They do not tolerate the testosterone that is coursing through the veins of young boys' bodies. They require boys to sit down. They don't have recess. They don't have activities. They don't have anything. They require boys to act like girls. And for you parents who have your head stuck in the ground and who say, oh, the school knows best, oh, the teacher knows best, oh, the teacher's doing her job, oh, the teacher really cares, you are a fool. But I'm not talking in general today, I'm talking specifically for black boys. Dr. Michelle Alexander has shown in her research, in her very famous book, I can't seem to think of it because I just looked at it, and of course I got on camera and forgot everything, which is my way. And anytime I'm talking to somebody off camera, I of course say the title's name directly. Dr. Michelle Alexander has found that there is a direct correlation between school and jail for black boys. First of all, they target black boys and say that 100%, as much as they possibly can, 100% have learning disability. When that fails, they do something else. But they say that they have learning disability. And poor moms, listen to this. Middle class moms, listen to this. Middle class dads, listen to this. They actually pay attention to it. They don't take their child to a doctor, psychologist, and say, test this boy to see, does he actually have learning disability? No, let's sue the school. For whatever reason, you don't do that. If somebody told me that my child, me with my hair under genius IQ, that my child has learning disability, I would first punch the person, beat the hell out of them, then sue the entire everybody involved whose name appears anywhere. You all need to start suing black people. Black people, start lawyer up. If somebody says your child has learning disability, you go get it checked. I took a blood test one time. I gave a blood sample one time, and they said I had hepatitis. I paid $600 to go to the doctor and get tested, and of course the doctor says absolutely not. You are a diplomat, the son of a diplomat. Of course you don't have hepatitis. You have the most pristine healthcare in the land. Whoever told you that is lying. Of course, the blood sample people probably said, "Oh, this guy's black. Let's just target him and say he has hepatitis or something ridiculous like that." Hepatitis is of course, the disease du jour of all homeless people. So there you go. Not only was it insulting, it was downright rude. And they were trying to say something about me, but they didn't know I had the money to go and get my second opinion that I paid cash for. Yes, you do insurance, I pay cash. Anyway, back to the thing at hand. They first try and drum the student out of regular class by saying that they're learning disability. Then they put the child, the boy, the black boy, into the learning disabled class. And we have seen interviews of the black kids that says, when I'm in there, they are teaching to the lowest common denominator. I'm rephrasing. Of course, a 6-year-old is not going to say that, or a 10-year-old is not going to speak this way, but they are teaching to the lowest common denominator. We are talking about kids who cannot speak, kids who can barely see. We're talking about kids who have legitimate learning disabilities. And they're putting black boys in those classes, in those programs. And then, because they're in those programs, they pump them full of drugs. And this goes on for what, 12 years? 12 years of that, and they come out, what? With a D average. They can't read, they can't write. Why? Because they were in the remedial learning disabled classes, because the learning disabled classes, of course, does not teach you how to become a fully functional adult. That is not what they're for. Of course, that program itself needs to be looked into. I'm not concerned about that program right now. I'm not concerned about overhauling that. I'm concerned about black boys. So they're calling for segregation of schools. This is systematic. This has been researched. This has been surveyed. This has been studied carefully, and they take those black boys and then they, of course, put them in jail. How did they get there? Because we have a human who is not functional in society. This whole thing of targeting black people. Obviously, I exist. I exist. Half of you watching this, who will watch this, don't have my vocabulary, you don't have my education, you do not have my intellect. Let's call a spade a spade. Half of you probably dropped out at the 6th grade. Do you have a level 19 reading capability? No. Can you read a medical manual? No. Can you read a legal manual? No. Let's be honest here. And if I exist, there's no confusion that I'm black. No confusion. I'm not Barack Obama. I'm not this color. I'm not this color, right? I exist. Obviously, being black has absolutely nothing to do with intellect. And anybody who tells you differently is a bigot and probably needs to be murdered where they stand. Where they stand. We don't need those kinds of humans. Do you know why? Because those kinds of people will tell you that black people need to be aborted in the womb. And let me go even a step further if we're going to talk about social Darwinism and all that sort of stuff. Every 100,000 births across the board, Asian, Native American, black, white, every 100,000 births, a genius pops out. Every 100,000 births, a genius pops out. Every race, every human, every 100,000 births, a genius pops out. Planned Parenthood has killed 50 million unborn children. How many 100,000 births is that? Do the math. How many geniuses has Planned Parenthood killed? You know what the funny thing about geniuses is? The funny thing about them is that a lot of times they don't do anything just for one race. They do things for the human race. So these geniuses that we have killed off in the black population could have been helping humanity. But instead, because of somebody's racist notion, and this is racist. When you start killing off black people en masse, that is called racism. That is not just bigotry. Bigotry is, I hate you, but that's it. I don't have the power to hire, fire, or do anything to you. Racism is this entire group can actually affect you, infect an entire group. So Planned Parenthood, which has slaughtered 50 million black babies in the womb, has slaughtered how many geniuses? How many geniuses have gone by the wayside? Black geniuses have gone by the wayside because of some stupid racism. Now, they're calling for segregation in schools and in land purchases and in communities and what have you for black people. Just black people. I didn't hear about anybody else. And that's fine. I'm in agreement with that. Let me tell you a little bit of a brief history. Before the civil rights machine got going, which was being controlled by the Democrats. I mean, how stupid is that? These are the people who are doing the segregation, who are doing the Jim Crow, who are doing the voter stuff. These are the people who were running the civil rights stuff. The Republicans were over there. The Democrats were right here. And the Democrats were running stuff. And so you come out of the civil rights era, and before the civil rights era, the black community was the fifth richest nation in the world. Black business was thriving. We had jet planes, hotels, cabs, buses, bus lines, everything. We had everything. Everything that you can think of, we had it. Before civil rights. After civil rights, the black community was completely destroyed. Completely destroyed. We're no longer the fifth richest nation in the world. In fact, we're not even in the 100? Top 100? No, I don't even think so. That's how far we've gone. That's how far we've dropped. Now, if we do go back to segregating ourselves, and especially in schools, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. You know why? Muslims do it. Hispanics do it. White people do it. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, two wrongs don't make it right. Grow up. This is the modern era. You are segregated on every form that you fill out. This is the modern era. We have to be a community. We cannot let white people dictate to us that we have illiterate, retarded children and treat them so and drug them. They haven't come out with the findings of the studies talking about the kids who have been drugged in school against their parents' wishes. That's another report that came out. That they can give drugs to your child without your consent, parent, without your notice, parent. And they drug black boys more than anybody else. And they're dying. Why? Because it's actually experimental drugs. How you like them apples? And they're doing it to black children. Would you not want to segregate your black son knowing all of this is fact? Go research it. All of these people say, oh, could you quote your sources? No, I don't want to quote my sources. I want you to do your research. If you are really concerned, and I'm not talking about you're so concerned that you left a comment. If you are really concerned, and I make videos that you should be concerned about, you should go do your research. The breastfeeding, go do your research. Autism and vaccines, go do your research. If you're so concerned, go do your research. I don't want you to even take my word for it. I plant the seed, you go do the research. They're feeding children. The FDA has not approved any pharmaceutical drug. None. Zero. They have a statement on their website. No drug has been approved for any minors. Right across their website. The FDA. But you're giving the drugs to your children anyway. Even the psychiatrist is prescribing drugs to your children. They're not supposed to take any drugs. Why? Because the child is developing. Drugs are for people who are permanent, right? They're about 30 years old. they're not going anywhere. They're not growing anymore. They're not forming anything anymore. They're pretty much permanent. About 30 years old. Seriously, for a man, you should not take any pharmaceutical drugs before the age of 25. Why? Because men keep growing all the way up to the age of 25. Did you know that? I know we have all of these layman's medical terms, layman's perceptions about men, but they're all wrong. They're all complete lies. I don't know what the purpose was, but that's it. The FDA has it pasted right on their website. No pharmaceutical drugs have been approved to be given to minors whatsoever because the child is still forming. He has ADHD. How do you know he has ADHD? Spank him, sit him down, and he won't have ADHD. But don't strap a little boy into a desk for 4 hours. That you might as well have put him in solitary confinement, which we know renders the brain mushy after a few days. It's the same thing for a male child. You need to take control of your child's education, black people. And I don't just mean go to the PTA meeting. I mean homeschool. My cousin homeschools all 4 of his children. My other cousin homeschools all of her 5 children. Thank God that both of their husbands make enough that they can do that. But that's what they do. That's exactly what they do. My family is pretty smart about all of this. All of them that care homeschool. Segregation is a great thing. Tell me what you think, black people. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show.